Hi again, and today we're gonna talk about definitions of the grimoires so that you can easier follow the coming parts of this video blog. And I have a computer on the floor here, so I won't be losing my way in what I wanted to speak about today. The first thing I would like to do is to try and define what a grimoire really is. It can actually mean quite a lot of things, but since this is about traditional grimoire work, there are a few things that are of importance to how it is defined within that tradition. One thing that defines it is its age. A grimoire to be accepted has to be from at least the 1800s and earlier than that. So if it's made during the 1900s, it's really not called a grimoire anymore, even if it has the components of a grimoire. The important components that needs to be found in a text that we are to call a grimoire is usually a list of spirits. It can be demons, it can be angels, it can be jinns, for example, that we can either evoke or invoke. Some very important texts like the Key of Solomon does not have a list of spirits to summon. But the other requirement is also that it needs to have its own magical system. And that is something like the Key of Solomon certainly does have. So those are the two main ingredient of what a grimoire really is. Also, when we talk about traditional grimoire magic, it's important to remember that it pretty much only applies to Western tradition magic. So if it's a text that would satisfy all these requirements, but it's a Buddhist text or an Indian text or whatever, then it doesn't fit into the grimoire tradition that I do, at least. Some would still call it a grimoire, but it will not simply fit into the kind of grimoire tradition that I do. Another thing that you often find in the grimoires are the so-called experiments. We have them in many of the grimoires. The Key of Solomon, for example, we can see them in Grimorium Verum, we can see them in the Grand Grimoire, and many other of the accepted grimoires. What that usually is sort of a side experiments. We find things like how to make a hand of glory. We can find how to make a flying carpet, or the very popular stuff that is how to get women come to you. I mean, to be honest, sex was a kind of big thing for these older magicians. And you often find them in the end of the grimoire. Then we also have something called modern grimoires. And modern grimoires are grimoires that have all these qualities we mentioned earlier, but have not yet reached the state of a classical grimoire. And that is usually because of age. Take, for example, the Necronomicon. I mean, sure, we all know that most of the Necronomicon is purely a made-up thing. But so are probably a lot of the older grimoires as well. So the Book of Necronomicon has a big chance of gaining classical grimoire status in the future but at the moment we will consider them strictly modern grimoires. And there are others like the Nap, for example, the Mighty Spells. I never remember what those are called. Basically, I pretty much only read texts that are written either during the 1800s or earlier. So what the modern grimoires are, you really should not ask me about what the text that can make this status might be, or actually ask any question on modern grimoires to me, because I don't know anything about it, basically. Another thing that I thought I would mention that has made a lot of problems within the grimoire tradition, it's the thing where we talk about the lesser and greater key of Solomon. There really aren't anything named that. The lesser key of Solomon was something that the Lawrence and Crowley used it to describe his Gotia. The Lawrence used it when it was a matter of him pirating the Gotia. It was also referred to as the Gotia. But the lesser key can also include the entire Lemegeddon. So it's very, very fussy to use these terms. When you hear me speak about the Gotia or the Lemegeddon, the Lemegeddon is, Gotia is a part of the Lemegeddon. So those are the terms I will use. And the greater key, really nothing to use. It's basically a mess up by De Lawrence. So I will not use those terms, and I hope that a lot of you guys will stop using that term, because it really messes up the text and no one really knows what you're talking about when you use these other words for describing the Key of Solomon and the Gotia and Lemegeddon. Okay. Traditional Grimoire magic is also something I would like to define. Basically, it's rather simple. Traditional Grimoire magic is doing Grimoire magic by the book. You use the magical system that is inside the book. You don't use other things around it, like you don't mix it with any other kinds of styles of magic. You simply go straight by the book. Let's see here. And but there's still kind of two variants that you can use. You can, as those of you have seen that have read the grimoires, obtaining the tools can be a hell of a lot of problem. They are hard to get, and if you manage to get them, they're often very expensive. Just take the Lionskin belt, a classic from the Gotia. A Lionskin belt is not cheap. You will probably have to pay a lot to attain that. But there's also another way that is still valid traditional Grimoire magic. That is when you cheat and use other types of material to get the where you still get the symbology right. And that is something I will talk about later on in later video blogs, I guess. And I will also mention a lot about this on how you do the cheating, how you do a low budget system of the different grimoires in my upcoming book.